Hi guys, and welcome to another edition of The Kevin Moore Show, which is sponsored by my website, channeling.com. Now on today's show, I'm about to be joined by my guest, Pieter Elsen. Now Pieter is a professional regression therapist with many years of experience, helping individuals find their higher purpose in and beyond life. Now Pieter was born in Holland and has lived in 5 different countries. Now in 2014, Pieter attained his Ph.D. in Metaphysical Humanistic Science with a specialty in Transpersonal and Spiritual counseling. Now he's trained and accredited by the Newton Institute for Life Between Lives Hypnotherapy, and Pieter specializes in past life and life between lives spiritual regression, where he helps you to rediscover your true immortal self. Pieter Elsen, welcome to the show.
Thank you for allowing me to be on your show.
Now, Pieter, you're originally from Holland, and I used to live in Holland. And one thing I remember about Dutch people, which I love Dutch people, but they're very logical. Yeah, they're not. I don't remember many of my Dutch friends being into not all of them, but very little of them, shall I say, being into the metaphysical stuff. So, it's lovely to have someone from Holland on the show. And, do you see in Holland, do you see that subject growing a little bit more as you go back, when you do go back?
I think I agree with what you say predominantly. So it's very, why don't you do normal? You're already crazy enough attitude, So maybe it's one of the reasons why I'm not in Holland at the moment. I love Holland and I love the Dutch people. And I still think there is like a hangover from the great Spanish Inquisition, even 500 years later, please don't mention this topic of spirituality, we just want to be free and don't be bothered. So it's a hangover from church culture, I think.
So when you were living in Holland, I mean, where was this sort of interest in the spiritual side?
Well, my mom was kind of a yogi type. She was one of the early members of the TM movement. I don't know if you're familiar. Well, the Beatles, they were TM followers for a while, and so she used to meet this Mahesh yogi, and so she was always interested, and then she kind of started to change more into a Vedanta movement. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it's another kind of a school of Indian philosophy, and so there used to come these monks from India, and we would go and see them, and I just had an interest ever since I was a kid. And if you read my book, you can see that I had some memories of my past lives where I already was involved in these kind of things. So I think I picked it up from where I left it earlier. It may sound a little airy-fairy, but that's how I experienced it,
And just at the early part of this interview, what is your website address?
Well, the one that's good related to my book is whensoulsawaken.com.
So just fill in the gaps for me a bit here. So you're in America now, you're in North Carolina, but when did you start to do the work that you're doing now? Was that back in Europe, or was that while you were in America? And what was that journey?
Well, my journey is kind of strange in a way that I was actually initially an industrial designer, a product designer, but as I was completing my studies, I finished it, and I loved it in a way, the creativity of it and the technical side of it. But my interest was always in the spiritual stuff. And so, like I told you, I was involved with my mom in kind of the yoga Vedanta world in Holland. That's where my heart was. And so after I finished my industrial design school, I actually joined a spiritual center in Paris, and I ended up being a monk for 21 years in an Eastern tradition. And so that's where I really got more acquainted with the philosophical side of things, which was really in line with my personal interest. And after 21 years in that, I loved the pursuit of that enlightenment. That's why I did it. But organizationally, it became kind of, time to go. And that's when I went back to college again and started going to a college of hypnotherapy. And then from there on, I started slowly to specialize in regression therapy. So past life and life between life. Ended up with the Michael Newton Institute of Life Between Life Regression. They're really the authority. As a matter of fact, he's you could say the godfather of life between life regression, just like Brian Weiss was the godfather of past life regression. And so that's how I rolled into it. It took me several years, to do all these studies, and now I've been doing this for many years. Many years.
So you went to the Newton Institute. Now, is Michael Newton, I believe, has he passed on?
He passed last year, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So you don't go into or maybe you do go into the Michael Newton Institute with no background on regression or life between life studies, or do you go there with a sort of, would you have been practicing, doing what you're doing for a long while before you did the course that you did there? I mean, how does that work?
No, I did past life regressions for an extensive period of time first. They won't even allow you in there unless you can prove that you have done years of past life regressions.
Really? Right. Okay.
Yeah.
And why is that, do you think?
Well, because, first of all, you need to master the techniques of regression itself. They're not the Newton Institute doesn't teach you regression techniques because they assume you already know hypnosis. They assume you know past life regression and regression techniques, but they teach you how to get from, if somebody goes in a past life and then they die, how do you take them to the life between life sphere? That's what they specialize in. What is that? How do you carry such a session and how do you behave yourself in such a session? So they are really specializing just there. So they assume that you already have the basics before you come in.
Before you come in, yeah. And obviously you said that you've been training, you went to a previous college many years ago before you went to the Michael Newton Institute. How many years had you been doing this work prior to going to the Michael Newton Institute?
I would say 6-7 years or so, something like that.
Right. And you build up a client base. You build up, having clients come to you for help. And where were you based at that time when you had done the college training to sort of being at the Michael Newton Institute? Were you in the States?
I was in Orange County, California, in the Laguna Hills.
Right. Okay.
I was always stationed there. Yeah.
And was that your sort of full-time job?
Yes, it was. Well, I played around with some industrial design part-time with a friend of mine. We did some injection molding stuff, but that was kind of on the side, just to.
Yeah. So this was your really this was something that pulled you so deeply, regardless of anything else you could have done, right? Yeah, to do this work. And what did you find so rewarding about doing this type of work as well?
Well, there's two aspects really. One is it's an extension of who I am and the way I've lived. Anything else I always tried, like industrial design and injection molding and stuff like that. However, I was fascinated by it. It was kind of an incongruency with how I've lived my life all these years, And this is an extension of my belief system, what I do and what I love. The second part of it is really helping people, and that's particularly with the life between life regression, helping people to find their higher purpose. There's nothing more, satisfying and gratifying than to see people connect with that within themselves. And so it's extremely rewarding to see that in people. So it's a spiritual kind of work.
Yes, absolutely it is. And there's so much we're going to talk about in this interview as well. Now, your latest book, which is called When Souls Awaken, Real-Life Accounts of Past Life and Life Between Life Regression. That's the latest book, and that's what we're about to get into. And as you know, look, I mean, if we were in person, this would be a different type of interview. We're doing it remotely, and there is just, I bet you there's just so many different people that you've seen. There's so many people that you've healed. When you first started out on this journey, using this method, did you find that the clients that you were having then were kind of more basic than the clients that you've got now? So the question is, as you've progressed in your ability to do this work, has the depth of clients coming through, and what they bring through deeper nowadays as well?
My clients have always been from day number one beautiful, and so I've not seen necessarily a change. I think what has changed is my capacity to relate as I get more experience, my capacity to share with them information before we start, which is a real important technique when it comes to doing regression work and any sort of therapy for that matter, to help people connect. We call it a pre-induction talk. So before we start, you're able to talk to them and share information with them, anticipate things that happen with their minds as they go through it, certain markers, guideposts, milestones. And so there definitely, of course, as you gain experience, you're able to be much more with them and really understand at all moments during this session what's going on. In the beginning, you know the techniques, but you don't have much frame of reference in terms of experience,
No. And do you think that you need to go to an accredited college to learn this stuff? Do you think you can learn it from online courses nowadays? Do you think you can, start at the bottom? No?
Well, I'm a believer in online education. I mean, don't get me wrong in that, because that is great. I mean, that's the future. But this is a little bit different in the sense that you need to be with people, hands-on, and they need to teach you the nuances, and you need to be, really involved, particularly in this topic. It's a practical thing. You have to go and actually do it. You cannot sit at home and learn how to do this. You have to be with people that are really good. They explain to you and they sit with you. And that's how the Michael Newton Institute also, gives you their final approval to do the work. I mean, you have to actually submit to them a whole string of cases after you graduate with them. And then they won't allow you to do it until they approve all the cases that you submit. So it's really hands-on, and it's really something that, takes a certain amount of time and experience to do.
Yeah, absolutely, it does. Did you ever find that a client that you took to this alternative space of life between life, or even just a past life regression, that there was ever a period where they were not trapped, but that there was a panic situation that happened, and you couldn't, something happened which came out of the blue that startled you, and there were problems within the regression. Have you ever encountered any problems within a regression for a client, or any situation that occurs, you can bring them through?
Yeah, well, you see, we build in right at the beginning certain safeguards. Like, we tell them we will not go back to negative or traumatic experiences. And so when they're getting into that theta state, right, they become very open, and a part of their mind follows these instructions. And, so we build a shield there, we build a fence, and that's why we're there. That's why we're the facilitators. So we don't really let them go to those kinds of experiences to begin with. Even if they would go there, even in spite of that, they would be more in a detached way, kind of hovering over it, or they would be witnessing it from a much more detached space. And the outcome would always be a positive, an understanding and letting go of certain things. So to get you trapped now, I've never, in all my years, that I've never seen that, because that would be a dangerous thing. I mean, that would be the scary thing, and you would go, well, let's hope that nobody gets trapped today. No, I mean, that just doesn't happen.
No, I didn't think it happened. I mean, I know someone once told me that it happened to them, but I don't think they were telling me the whole truth, and I think they were being over the top about something that didn't actually happen. But I just wanted to ask you that. What is different between going to a life between life space versus a past life regression?
Yeah, well, that's a very important question. We do them both during the same session. So it's not only an entry point into the life between life, because we take somebody to a past life, and then we kind of take them to the childhood of that life, and then we progress them forward to the last day of their life, and then we make them go through the death transition. And from there, we take them into the life between life stage. So it's also the route that we take. That's one part. But there is a distinct difference. And Michael Newton always insisted that we do the past life regression along with the life between life regression, because the past lives shows us certain tendencies, certain patterns that we may still be struggling with today, and certain things that we may have set in motion, but they haven't come to fruition. And we see that very often, that the instruction is go back to the most relevant past life, like not to the last past life, but to the most relevant past life. And so this relevant past life is that may be the origins of an issue that somebody is still working on today, or perhaps something they need to see that they already accomplished that they may have forgotten today. And so since we go into the life between life to find purpose, of course, the information coming from that past life is intimately related to that purpose. So both are extremely necessary. But the life between life really gives us much more of a future idea. Like, okay, why am I here on this earth? What is my purpose? What do I need to do from here on? And, it's kind of a checking in, like, I'm here in this life today, and I'm struggling to really identify what the heck I'm supposed to do. I'm just kind of going through the motions. I'm feeling, in spite of having everything or whatever may be your life situation, I'm feeling devoid of purpose and meaning. That's what the life between life helps us to discover. The past life helps us to discover, like, well, why am I the person I am today? So it's very different, but yet they're obviously intimately connected.
Absolutely. And what happens then when a soul awakens then, as your book title says? I mean, what is the benefits of a soul awakening in any incarnation?
Well, awakening can take place at many different levels. I mean, I can awaken to my purpose, but I can also awaken to my true spiritual identity. So, and that may be my purpose. So what happens is that at any level where I become more awakened than I'm now, at any level where I feel more aware of my purpose, I become awakened to the meaning of my life. And rather than feeling like I'm just going through the motions, why am I here? What am I supposed to do? So at any stage of awakening is beneficial.
What does a person's life look like once they've had a session like this, as an awakening life purpose session, right? Versus someone that doesn't have that, in a sense?
But I think we can find that in so many different ways. This is just one way, right? I mean,
Just one way, right? That's what I wanted you to say, yeah.
yeah, this is just one way, and I'm not preaching the gospel like, oh my God, you got to do this, otherwise you will never find your purpose. No, this is one of the many ways of discovering your purpose, and I will the last person to say that, this is without this, man, forget it. No, but this is a way for certain people to get out of the left brain, because sometimes we get caught by our own left brain and we just can't stop the chatter, right? And so with the facilitation that we do, that's the beauty of the process. We help you really calm that left brain down. So these mind waves, they become really calm, and you get in touch with your own truer self. And just to touch that, right? Just to touch that space undisturbed by your endless chatter of your own brain. It's a tremendous peaceful place to be. And so, irrespective of what kind of discovery they make, because it's different for everybody. Everybody's at a different place in their life, a different time in their life, a different level of evolution in their life. So I say what it looks like is that they find a clear direction relative to where they are today.
Yeah, so it's relative to so the direction they find in a session with yourself potentially may not be the direction they go in 10 years' time, but
No.
it's the direction they need right now.
Yes, and that's why it's important to not claim in any way or shape that, you know, this is going to make you enlightened and this is the way, and, you know, no, this is, you're in a particular place in your life right now, and any sort of clarification, any sort of nudge is beneficial from where you are now. So, you know, that's why we're all different. We all come in with different baggage, with a different mindset, and so any sort of help we can get regarding our purpose, in relation to our purpose, is beneficial. So I will never claim that you're going to see the ultimate reality because of this session. Some people, they have a very clear vision of what they seem their ultimate reality. But as they say in NLP, you know, nobody sees reality as it is. We only see a map superimposed. You know, we see an imposition. We superimpose our reality on reality, and we only see a map of it. So at no given stage can you really say, well, that's it, right? Because who knows what else is there.
Well, thank you for that. So when someone goes through a life between life review, are you able to speak to some part of them that's greater than themselves, in a sense, right? That has all the answers that their client's looking for?
Yeah, well, there's different aspects to that. So, first of all, in our current state, what inhibits us from seeing more clearly is that we are caught in our own paradigm. It's like you're in your own world, and that limits you from perceiving what's outside there. Sometimes, you know, we are stuck in our own loop, so to speak. And so at any given moment when we can get somebody to step out of that loop and start looking at themselves in reality, so to a much bigger reality, then obviously at that moment there's going to be revelations. You're going to realize, oh my God, why do I make such a fuss about this when life is so vast and I'm here spinning in my own, you know, thought patterns. But in reality, you can also tap into something that goes way beyond that. And in my book, there are several chapters where people have experienced, like, I'm a drop in the ocean, metaphorically speaking, right? They got so deconditioned in that state where they left their own conditioning. I don't know to what degree you're able to leave your own conditioning completely, because even in the life between life, you still carry the impressions of your past with you. But to that degree, it becomes more transparent. You start to relate more to the universal consciousness. And so there have been plenty of cases where people have really started to, in some ecstatic way, touch that vastness, that reality, that unified field. And that is, well, those are kind of the peak experiences that I have seen with people.
Well, yes, because I think it's in some of your, let me ask you that, no, it's not in your book, but I'll just say it from this perspective, sorry. Well, yes, absolutely, because I think you've said before that, you know, we're all immortal travelers traveling through lifetimes. And I think that was a really good way you know, for someone to express what it is that we're talking about, who we are really.
Yes. Yeah, just realize that I always say that to people, you know, when they ask me, what do you hope to gain from this? So what if you could just for a moment realize that you are not Johnny or Ahmed or Lee, right? If you just for a moment, you realize this is just a program in the matrix, that your real reality is outside the matrix. Your real reality is something outside this world that we now take so seriously and are burdened by. And just even one moment of disconnect from that reality that we live in, what would it do for us? Right? I mean, it would change the way we deal with stress, with anxiety. We have a place to retreat to. We have a place to ascend to. We have a place to you know, be free. And so even if that may just be 1 second, even if that may just be one glimpse, and a lot of people, they get to experience that, and it doesn't mean they may all have a cosmic experience, but even to just step out of your own conditioning for just a moment, what would it do for us? So the psychological impact can be quite dramatic.
How many sessions do people need with this type of work, would you say? Is it a case that, it's working for me now, but in the future I may need to revisit some stuff back in that space? Or do you find that you don't have repeat clients with this type of work?
I do. Though the sessions generally are pretty intense as they are. And so if people come back, there will be some time between. But I have plenty of people that said, for two reasons. One is, it was so awesome just to feel this way.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to feel that way again. I want to reconnect. And
Mm-hmm.
other people feel like, there's more to explore. There was one aspect that we really didn't dive into, and I didn't maybe share it with you as much as I wanted to.
Right.
So they go into that as well.
What were some of the most fascinating cases when you went in that journey of the life between life that really shocked you, in the sense that, oh my God, can reality be this way? Is this true, what they're saying to me?
Well, it's true to them. I mean, let's that be clear from the beginning.
It's true to them. And when we say it's true to them, that could mean that the way that they're perceiving it is the only way that they're going to be able to perceive it, even though it's not quite what they think they're perceiving. It's the only way for them to understand it.
No, they are perceiving their reality at this point in their evolution. Look at what is reality. We can ask ourselves, even on this plane, right, on this earth plane, what is reality? I mean, our senses severely inhibit us from seeing reality. I mean, our empirical reality is limited to my eyesight, to my hearing, to my upbringing, my parental environmental, physical baggage. So, for example, right here, right now, there's infrared, there's ultraviolet, but do you and I see it? No, we don't, but it's here. What does reality really look like? And so how come I'm unable to perceive reality? Now, that, of course, is true at all levels. If you go into the life between life sphere, you still carry some of that conditioning, the memories of all your past life with you. It's like a shield that kind of sits around between you and your true soul identity. And so it's it's like wearing red glasses, and that's what you're going to be seeing. So you see reality to the degree your conditioning will allow it, even in the life between life reality. So it's not for me to judge that, because that's what they see right now. But it doesn't mean that tomorrow, if another chunk of the layer of the onion drops off, they may see clear. But as a facilitator, your task is not like, oh, well, that's not reality, so you're not there. No,
You're not judging. Yeah. Okay.
Cannot,
well, what?
Because, yeah.
Yeah. Well, what are some of the most incredible experiences you've had with clients that you can share?
Well, there's two things, right? I've had incredible past life stories. I mean, I've seen it all, kings and queens and priestesses and high temple, and then there is, of course, the life between life experiences, right? So, and then the connection between the two. I remember fondly, it's actually happened in one, and that's why when you asked me earlier, have the cases changed over the years? One of my first cases was a young boy of 23 years old that came to me, and he had this experience where at night he would see this hooded figure at the feet of his bed, and he came to me and he says, I want to know what this is. Why am I seeing this? And so, as we went back into the past life regressions, we went first back all the way to Atlantis. Now, Edgar Casey talked a lot about Atlantis, but it's very unusual in my work to actually meet people that have gone to Atlantis. I only have met a handful of people that went back to Atlantis. He was one of them, where he was working with his spiritual teacher, who was a healer. And we did several past lives, because we did several sessions with him. And in another life, he went back to Egypt, where he was also a healer with this. Well, actually, after Atlantis went down, they went to Egypt. He was in Tibet with the same spiritual teacher. He recounted many lives with the same spiritual teacher, where he described in detail the healing work that they did, how they would heal. He would describe in the pyramids the kind of work that they did to heal people. And what was really remarkable was his being reborn again and again with the same spiritual teacher. And then eventually he came in this life, and we went from the past life regression to the life between life regression, and this same teacher came in as a guide and told him, I'm the one that you have been seeing in all these past lives, and I'm the one that stood at your bed at night to remind you what your duty here in this life is. You are a healer, and I've prepared you over many lifetimes, but I don't take any more births. So my journey on earth is done. I just came to remind you. So there's a beautiful connection between the past lives and the life between lives, where this young man had visions of his teacher, appearing before him, having lived many lives with him, and reminded him, this is your purpose. This is just one story. I mean, I've got hundreds of these stories.
Oh, I bet you have. And I mean, obviously, I've interviewed a lot of people who have had lives on other planets or other planes of existence. How rare are those type of people coming to you? Are they rare, or is that quite common to have someone that's has some sort of existence beyond this planet?
What I see, and it's actually the last chapter in my book, I actually have somebody like that. But rather than I have not seen many clients. Michael Newton calls them hybrids. They have actually lived on other planets and other levels of existence. What I have seen several times is somebody who is actually more coming from an astral plane to begin with. Like there was this one lady who was assigned, basically in the Christian idea of these angels, right? Like they have to come back to Earth to do some work. And she was like this, where she came back, when she was sent back to the Middle Ages during the burning of witches. And she was a really highly evolved soul that was assigned, and her home wasn't here on Earth, her home was there. And she recounted a life where she had a lot of psychic powers as a young girl, knowing the future, healing, and so on, coming from that other dimension. And her task was to enlighten that, dogmatic world of the Middle Ages. And she refused to do it. She was afraid. When she was on Earth, her family, she couldn't trust anybody. They would report them to the church and burn them, and many people got burned. And so she ran away to the forest, where she lived her life quietly and silently, just doing some healing for herself, and she was really disconnected from people. And then she went back to the life between life sphere, and we had an encounter with her teachers that said, why are you doing this? And from there we saw some more past lives where she had been running away each and every time because her vibration was so high, and she didn't want to adapt and sacrifice herself in this world. And so, it was fascinating experience, her case, where her teachers told her, this time, in this birth, you better not run away. And we made it easy for you. We give you a nice husband, you have plenty of money, there is no burning, there's no persecution, but mix with the people and share your gifts with people. And so she was asked to do that in this life. And so she was a shy little Korean woman, and but she was amazing. I mean, you could see and feel in her presence that she wasn't from here. But yet she was assigned to do this work over and over again until she learned. So it's, I've seen these cases.
Do the clients? Have you ever asked the clients to give you permission to speak to this space where they go to sometimes once they've had their healing done? Have you ever sort of had your own questions that you wanted to give to any beings that have appeared in front of clients for your own
I'm tempted,
knowledge?
but I don't. I'm very
right.
tempted. It's not about me, right? I'm a facilitator. So the more space I allow for their experience, and I'm going to mix in my. But I've had guides comment to me like, you're with this guy, I sent you to him, and that's blah, blah. And so they spoke to me, referring to me in so many ways, but I don't go there and then ask my own personal stuff, however tempted I am.
Yeah, and I also meant like questions for everyone rather than just your own personal stuff, but questions for the broader public as well.
Well, what happens is people, they do come in with these questions anyhow. What I do is before we meet, I send out a questionnaire and ask them, well, what if you would meet a higher energy, a higher source, what would you like to know? And so people have personal questions and some people have more existential questions. And so we do get, I get a lot of information for the good of humanity, you could say, from there. But it's
Okay, well let's go in that space a little bit. So, obviously, awakening and purpose. You found that to be important stuff for people. But why does our higher self want us to awaken to a purpose? Why do we come down here with a purpose? A lot of us, do we come here with a meaningful purpose?
Yeah, well, my book actually is about that. The second session of my book is divided in three sections, and the second section really highlights this question, because, I mean, why? I mean, it's a big question. So, it's an ambiguous topic because you have to be careful to project your findings and your ideas upon everybody else for several reasons. First of all, the respect for all the different traditions and all the different paths and belief systems. And I will be the last person to generalize a purpose for mankind. However, that doesn't mean I may have a personal opinion about it. And what I find with my clients, I think we can divide the purpose in two ways. One is a directly earthly purpose, like, well, what is the good way to be happy? And so I find, and you can see that in my second section of the book, where I highlight really three aspects. One is I have there a triangle, that one is the importance of safety and comfort / money. The other one is love, relationships, meaningful relationships. And the third one is that spiritual orientation. And so if the triangle is in balance, we can live a happier life. I mean, these are the things that we find during all these sessions that I have seen, that the guides are very much concerned, not just about our future hereafter, but why not be happy now, right? You can say, well, I'm going to have this purpose after death, but I think it's more intelligence to also be having a purpose and feeling happy here and now. And so these three aspects, that comfort and safety, that love and that spiritual approach, are very big topics in the regression that we find again and again. And then out of that synergy of these three elements comes then a space within your mind, a tranquility, a balance that then allows us to evolve into higher thoughts. And so the first tier would be to organize your life and find a balance in life. And then the outcome of that balance is not only a happier state of mind, but also a calmer state of mind that would allow for higher thoughts, and for a concern about humanity, about the planet, about the environment, about others, and yourself in relation to that cosmic reality.
What is balance?
Balance, according to all the cases I've seen, is really that what I was just trying to kind of highlight is that this three pillars, the three pillars between spending enough time and energy on your loved ones, spending enough time and energy on being financially okay, but not spend too much money and energy on it, and then having a spiritual outlook on life, whatever that is for you. That is very different for everybody. We cannot qualify that this is a or the best path, whatever your belief, your tradition may be. But this balance is not spending all your energy, for example, on just making money or worrying about money, taking that away from your loved ones. And when your heart is not, in the right place, then how can you be spiritually sensitive to the planet or to other people or to other races or to other communities? So balance is having just the right distribution of your attention in all these three elements. And that allows for a higher state of mind, a more peaceful state of being. So balance is really a state of mind that is the result of how we live our lives and where we spend our energy and our time. And rather than being out of balance, where we over or under invest in any of those three areas.
Interesting. And is that a commonality between a lot of your clients that you've had come to you?
For sure.
Yeah.
Commonality,
But then
one of the three, one or two or three are out of balance, over or under invested in any of the three pillars.
But then we could look up to someone that's quite famous and not realize that their life is out of balance.
Yes, completely. Yes. Yeah.
And actually, rather than being a mirror to us or showing us what's possible in life and what we can achieve, they're actually showing us what out of balance could look like.
Exactly. I had this lady who was very wealthy, came to me, and living in a gated community and being completely isolated from loved ones because she was upholding and maintaining and sustaining. And she didn't have to work because she had a lot of money, but just the prestige and just the identification with that image took so much of her psychic energy that she was not able to relate to others. There was no love investment. And as a result, her spiritual purpose was unclear. And so it's always one or two or three of those pillars that is out of balance. And so it had nothing to do with success per se. Success in this way would be regarded as a perfect balance between the three pillars, which is very rare, actually.
What about relationships in our life? When you have clients that come to you, let's look at another aspect of this. Relationship, you mentioned obviously spending time with our loved ones, but what about relationship issues? What about the partners that we attract in our life and what they are teaching us?
Well, they are our greatest mirrors, right? And so depends on what level you're looking at it, but the partners in our lives are then part of that balance pillar. Are they helping me to become balanced? Let's say I have a lot of clashes with a certain partner, but those clashes will help me to, fine-tune my angularities, then that partner is good for me in the grand scheme of things, right? But if that partner would be, I would lean on that partner because of my codependency, my inability to be spiritually strong or financially independent. Well, whether a relationship can be helpful or detrimental to that balance, and the idea being that if a relationship shows me like a mirror what it is that I need to learn in relation to finding balance in my life, even if that person would be annoying me, I have quarrels with that person, but if that tension would help me polish off my angularities, then such a relationship would be very beneficial. But on the other hand, I could be a person that would be very codependent upon somebody because of my failure to be either financially independent or spiritually be awakened. And so you see, the idea of those three pillars is always a really good way to look at our lives and ask this question: is this good for me? Is this helping me in my balance? Is this helping me to be to become happy, to become free, and to become more enlightened in my being? And so relationships are the perfect way to find out where I am in the grand scheme of things.
Absolutely, they are. And now you only do sessions in person, is that right?
Yes.
Yeah. So how does someone get a sort of session with yourself then? I guess they've got to be in California
No,
or any part of the
travel.
US?
I travel a lot. As a matter of fact, that's mostly what I do, because I'm living in the Appalachian Mountains and there's very rarely somebody coming here. So there's a whole range on the East Coast where I go all the way from Richmond, Virginia, Raleigh, Charlotte, Asheville, all the way down to Florida. And then I sometimes do this week or 10-day programs. Like in January, I have a Florida 10-week engagement. I just came back from 10 days in Las Vegas and Orange County. In December, I'll be there again. In February or March, I'll be there again. So I do these camps, so to speak.
Okay, and people can find about the information on that on your website as well, or more information on that on your website.
Well, I don't put my program there, but they can contact me either through the Newton website or through my website, whensoulsawaken.com, or Elsen Hypnotherapy, either way. And there's, my contact information is there. And people generally, they just email me, text me, or write me, or whatever, call me. And we set up an appointment.
Okay, one final question then. What is the nature of our reality, do you think, after all the years of doing this work and all the clients that you've seen? What is the nature of who we really truly are, and why are we here?
Well, like we discussed earlier, I'm always hesitant to make any absolute statements about it because we all believe different things. And my task as a facilitator is not to tell anybody what that reality looks like or should look like. So let that be, clear from the beginning, because I would set somebody up for disappointment if their reality wouldn't be to what I think it is or should be. So I'm very hesitant to say that. However, from a philosophical standpoint and from my personal experience and things that I have experienced myself, irrespective of the regressions, is that the way I look at it is more in tune with some of the Buddhist or Vedic thought, which is also in alignment with quantum physics, that, I am a drop of that ocean. And enlightenment means that at any given time, I don't have to be dead for that. I can realize my oneness with this ocean. And the reason why I cannot see it, and that would then also could be defined as my purpose, is because of all the layers of conditioning in this life and in all past lives that are wrapped around me like a sheath. And the purpose would be to make that sheath or whatever you call it, more translucent. And so that I could sit here right now, and while I'm in this frequency, I could simultaneously feel my oneness with all things and all people and all souls, that we are all one. Nature, I'm one with nature. I'm one with reality. I'm one with other people, with all souls that exist. This is a state of consciousness that can be experienced right here and now. And there's testimonies of people that have experienced that. Now, like I said, you don't have to die for that, but in that life between life experience, many times people tend to experience more of that reality because the identification with the body and the mind and this life is thinner in that life between life state. And that's why we do that work. And so what's the purpose? I would say to realize our oneness with all things, just like quantum physics, that quantum physics tells us that there is only one reality. That's just an energy field. But that energy field is conscious. That consciousness is life, it's love, is knowing. And in the Vedas, they call it Satchit Ananda, existence, knowledge, bliss, absolute. And that this is my reality, this is my identity. And that if I feel depressed, if I feel sad, then to know that, I could aspire to realize this about myself and about all other beings as well. That I don't have to feel so limited and small, that if I learn to, clear up my karmic bondages and identifications, then the sky's the limit in the way how I could feel.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. And what would you say is one of the most important messages of your latest book as well?
The message is really the same, is that at the end of the day, I am divine by nature. I'm not a sinner. I'm not a conditioned human being. I'm not separate from you. I am one with you in the highest way, and that my purpose is to feel that and to realize that and to love all and to be one with all. I think that is, it's not only a target, but it's a state of being that we could experience, and that the reward is within me. That what would such a consciousness be like, to live in a state of mind that is so elevated? How would you feel inside? I mean, the joy and the light that I could experience at any given moment.
Well, Pieter Elsen, just remind me of your website one more time.
It is whensoulsawaken.com.
Well, Pieter, I love the work that you're doing, and I just want to, thank you for giving me your time today. I would like to think that our paths will cross one day in person. I thank you for what you do, and I just really have appreciated you coming on this morning for this interview. Thank you.
Thank you so much.